Morning, guys. Sound check 1 2. Hope you're having a great day. Let's kick it off. Let's get started in today's morning market update. Morning, Marco. Triangle Trading Floor. Everybody, welcome to you guys. And let me just set up this mic. Wearing a Leafs jersey today. Today's a big game for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I believe this is actually William Nylander's personal jersey. This is the practice jersey when they had the Pure Later sponsor. I got a pro stock. It's a green practice jersey. It feels really nice. But today we play against a team who has one of our former players that was very controversial for the first time at a home game. So it's going to be interesting tonight. Wish I could go to it, but I can't. I'm in Florida. Let's kick it off. Today's morning market update for January 23rd of 2026. S&P futures are down slightly. Markets across the board in the U.S. are actually down slightly. All right, U.S. bourses are also lower. Stocks down 6. Stocks and DAX headed lower. Bitcoin's off about 0.5%. Ethereum down 0.1%. All right, the economic calendar for today, the econ calendar is not very heavy. 10 a.m. we have University of Michigan expectations and consumer sentiment, and then at 1 p.m. we have the Baker Hughes rig count and some UST option expiration on the calendar. So very light. Watch at top of the hour, 10 a.m. You might have some influence from Michigan survey, but it's listed as a normal impact event, and it normally isn't a market mover. All right, next up on the news, NVIDIA. NVIDIA up 1.7 pre-market. We need our darling and tech stock to rally to kind of help us out. But it's up 1.7. China informs its biggest tech firms that they can prep and get ready to put in orders for NVIDIA's H200 chip. This is according to a Bloomberg report. They said companies are allowed, they're not allowed to discuss things such as number of chips that they would buy. So it's not going to be open information. And they also suggest China will encourage firms to purchase specific number of domestic chips as well. So they'll have quotas. So interesting. NVIDIA is up on that news. The biggest report in the morning and overnight in the last 12 hours has been out of Bank of Japan. I think a lot of people are kind of not in tune or hip to what's going on in Japan, and I think it's a big mistake. I'll tell you why in a second. All right, so Bank of Japan, BoJ, as we call it, had a rate decision, the equivalent of a Fed meeting in the U.S. All right, and what happened overnight is a big crash of the JPY, the Japanese yen. All right, so here's the news. I'll give it to you concentrated, and you could read up more on your own time. I just want to alert you to it. Bank of Japan held rates at 0.75% in an 8-1 vote. There was one dissenter. All right, upward inflation was revised for 2026, and he said their governor Ueda, I don't know, I always pronounce names so bad. He said we must pay attention to even small foreign exchange moves. So this is the equivalent of Jerome Powell saying we must pay attention to small tiny S&P 500 moves, because the currency market to them is more important than the stock market. All right. On that news, the dollar Jap yen pair flash crashed from 159.10 to 157.32. I can only imagine how many FX traders got wiped out today. All right. So that is the rate going down because it's quoted US dollar Jap yen. The rate going down means the Japanese yen is strengthening. If the rate was going up, the dollar is strengthening, the Japanese yen is weaker. And if they both strengthen an equal amount, the pair doesn't go anywhere. That's how currencies work. So it's a underperformance by it's not an underperformance by dollar. So it's a big giant leap forward for the yen. And I'll tell you what implications that has. In August of 2024, Bank of Japan hiked unexpectedly. So the key word here is unexpectedly. U.S. Japanese yen collapsed from 162 to 142 in a mere weeks, and that has an impact on the carry trade. The carry trade is borrowing money in Japan for low interest rate and investing it in the United States for a higher interest rate, and you obviously earn the return of what your money is returning on the capital investment decisions you make, plus the spread between the rates, which is very low in Japan and higher in the U.S. for deposits. All right, low borrowing costs in Japan, higher deposit rates in U.S. That's a carry trade. And so in 2024, this was a massive carry trade unwind. Why is that? Was the Japanese yen strengthens, and as the interest rate goes up, it's higher borrowing costs. But if you're leveraged, you're going to have to sell something to pay your borrowing costs because you put it all to use. So all this is to say the ES, the S&P 500, dropped 500 points in days on Bank of Japan. Not saying this is going to happen here, but I am saying it is very, very important to pay attention to Bank of Japan in critical moments like this. The levels to watch are 157 in the US dollar Japanese yen pair. Below there's going to be carry trade unwind and carry trade pressure, and it could accelerate and start to hurt things like NASDAQ and the S&P. All right, 155 is a danger zone for really big deleveraging. We're far away from it now, but not so far because we moved 200 pips, which is the pip is the single smallest move increment in the currency market. But we moved 200 pips on this news this morning. And in April, Bank of Japan meets again end of April, and the Fed meets May 6th to 7th. All right. But we could have sudden intervention impact. So just keep an eye out on this. Keep an ear out. It's not getting too much coverage or attention in the U.S. Some traders are missing what's going on there. So I wanted to spend some time talking about it in today's morning market update. All right. It is something that has more impact later on, like April. That's when the big decision is, but he was more hawkish, and there's a lot of currency pressure at the moment, and they may have to intervene to prevent this currency pressure from turning to a big unwind that could then spill over and infect the U.S. With the disease of the carry trade unwind. So that's how Bank of Japan, quietly in the background, is not key, but can become vital very quickly. All right, big market movers this morning. Gold's down 0.2, briefly below 4,900. Crude's up 1.5%. Copper's up 0.4. Ericsson up 8.3% of strong earnings. Intel not up at all. They had a really bad report guidance-wise. All right, Trump and geopolitics. U.S., Ukraine, and Russia meeting is happening today in Abu Dhabi. So you may have some headline risk there to keep an eye out for. Trump says he's done with selecting his Fed chair after interviews. He has someone in mind. That's it. That's all that's important. Okay. Key events today, we have the flash PMIs at 9:45 a.m., 15 minutes after the open. Top of the hour, we already talked about having University of Michigan. And then also the House passed a bill to prevent a funding closure to the government once again on January 31st. So we had a deal this week, so that's off the calendar of worries. Now let's turn around and look at the charts. Morning, OTM. OTM, my brother. Prashant. Morning, sir. Ross. Go Bruins. Ross, come on, bro. We're supposed to be friends here. We're supposed to unite and not divide one another. I guess you can't say that with a Leafs jersey. I think just about every fan who loves hockey hates the Leafs. And I think the Habs too, Montreal. I'd say the crazier fan base, the craziest fan base of all NHL teams is for sure the Montreal Canadiens. I say that as a Leafs fan. Second is definitely Leafs fan. They're an interesting bunch. Just remember, they're damaged goods. Look at what we had to deal with the last 9 years. Anywho, Bruins specifically hurt my heart because that was the beginning of the downfall. But I love the brand of Bruins hockey. Always been a fan. All right, let's keep going. Morning market update. I'll put up the notes because I think last time you guys enjoyed that. Some of you might like to read along. Maybe you prefer to read rather than listen. That's cool. Well, actually, maybe you prefer both when you combine them. Here, should I make it bigger? I think yesterday or last time I did it, and it I was shocked, but I think it worked for some of you guys. If I change this to heading, it all just kind of gets bold, but that's fine. All right, so today's story. Yesterday, we opened 69.53 quarter on that. Let me zoom in because I know you guys are on screens and you might be on a phone, something. Let me just make it a little more clear. All right, here we go. So yesterday, we opened at 69.53 quarter. That's not 0.29. That was the prior day open. The open price was here. All right, we bid upward, but we ultimately failed to get any traction above the opening range. It's a failed rally. It's a market rejection. Down we go. We knew we had some sell stops planted. All right, we drove lower to 69.25 to set the prior day low, which is down here. All right, then we rallied all the way up to 69.69 to set the prior day high, which is a 43.5 point range. big rally upwards. So you're seeing a lot of volatility. And yesterday in the morning, we said it wasn't going to be an easy day, probably a little bit more volatile. Bullish, but start out being cautious. We did have a bullish rip after a big surprising dip. So already kind of the day was, I slept 4 hours. I don't really remember much from yesterday, I'll be honest with you guys. All right, we came just 8 points shy on this rally upwards of closing the gap at around 78 that happened on the Sunday Globex reopen. Why is that important? Well, it would have kind of finished off a pattern a lot of traders watch for, but it wasn't meant to be. We didn't close the gap. We got within 8 points. And I always say this, gaps don't always have to close, and they don't have to close just because you're long. So there it is. It failed. Prior day high was established at 69. All right, last 3 hours of the trading day just sold off hard back down near the lows, but we didn't touch the lows. All right, so we didn't form a new lower low. We did form a higher high technically, but this is a volatile consolidation at the moment. All right, we closed just 7.5 points shy at the end of the day after all this huffing and puffing of where we opened. Not much advancement. You call that a consolidation day. All right, we only traded 1.3 million contracts in the S&P 500, and the day before was 2.3. The day before that was 2.2 million, Wednesday and Thursday. So it's not heavy volume. There was movement, but there wasn't volume. So there wasn't much trade, as much trade in comparison to the last couple of days. All right, that's what happened in the U.S. Now let's look at the story overnight. Globex range, we traded inside of the prior day. We just actually escaped out of that, so that point is no longer valid by a freaking, three-quarters of a point, just to kind of invalidate my opinion here this morning. But the overnight high set was 63.25. The overnight low just came in 3/4 below the prior day low at 24.75. But for most intents and purposes, and to unless we're going to really nickel and dime here, which we could, but the overnight range stayed inside the prior day's U.S. session range. All right. Buyers couldn't break the new highs. Sellers just barely broke the low now. And we're kind of range bound on weak volume. We have, 174,000 contracts at 9 a.m. That's terrible. That's not good. You should be trading 220, 230, 250, 300 on the top end. All right. The trading plan then is this. We haven't seen expansion of above yesterday's range rather, so we haven't seen a breakout. So it's hard to stay so bullish here, but I'll say this to you, that we have to play the edges. The edges are here and the edges are here. We have to find price that's fresh. Today we got to shop for trades like we shop for groceries, like onions. You're not going to buy the big old bruised onion. You're going to search through them to find a good one, all right? Or, I don't know, for apples or any kind of fruit. So we're picking trades today like we're picking fruit at the market. All right, we have to find the ones that are good, and we have to find them at the extreme edges. All right, at the tops and the highs. We want fresh price below here or above here to really give us the best opportunity, especially on a Friday. Because if Friday doesn't give you a fresh price, that means that you're going to see a consolidation. You're going to get chopped up. And Fridays, I'm extra cautious trading on. If I had to cut my work week to 4 days a week, I would take Friday out easily, like the easiest. In fact, I'm considering it at the moment for the trading room, but I still want to be here for you, right? So 69.25, half is the flip zone. We're at the flip zone now. If we get sell pressure below there, I don't like the long as much. I like bullish above that level. Below, you're going to start to see some sell pressure, and I'll show you some other data that supports that in one moment. All right, so long trades near this level. We're at it at the moment. And it's actually really great that that's happening, because if it opens at this level, we'll get the trade early, be done early, and have a longer weekend. And all the blessings for that. All right. Short trade near the top of the range or the middle of the range, which is where the prior day cash closes. Many times traders make the mistake to call a range the resistance and support, but the middle of the range arguably is the most important level of that entire range for support and resistance. All right, so yeah, watch for it around there for some resistance. Entry points on the long are now, all right, if it's qualified properly above this middle point, because then it'll be more likely to rebound to the tops. Break and retest above that top, or failed breaks, you could short on the downside. Or the clean one would be a break and retested this with the short with some good order flow support. All right, targets down are going to be 69.04. That was a really big order flow level. I think the bias this morning isn't super bullish, and if we zoom out on this chart, the way that we kind of, a couple days ago when we said, hey, we're oversold, I think some buy stops are coming. The way we bottomed out on this pattern actually looks very much like the way we're topping out at the moment at this pattern, just more compressed in less days, the price flushed out. So I think we could be getting a longer term trend structure pullback. 69.04 would be the first target, down into 88 and 90. That was a big zone for us for a long time. Ultimately, if we get into these low to like mid 50s, I think the pullback is complete. How many times do we see a trend rally? Everyone gets excited to be bullish, come all the way down near the low, and then it explodes higher. Okay, so this is what I think we're setting up for next week. Some risk remains on the table for next week from geopolitical and catalysts. All right, but traders, I think, want to close the book strong on this week. I really do. All right, so zooming out, we took a look at what I wanted to show you. Just keep in mind that, yes, we've had a rally the last couple days, but if you go further out than the last couple days, then, you know, we've had a big gap down, which was already bearish heading into this level here, but big gap down on Sunday's Globex, and it's so big that we couldn't even close it. We tried, and every time we go into this gap, all rallies are failing, and we're selling back down pretty sharply. How many times does that happen? Well, let's count it, if you guys like to count. All right, breaking into the gap, you know, I'd call this 1 run failure, 2 runs failure, 3 runs failure. Third time, we couldn't even get another high close to the highs. So I think we're below today's flip zone. I think the sell stops are going to hit pretty hard and quick into the 05. So the trade for me is either get long off the support structure on order flow, or you don't see the buyers and you get short below this support structure that becomes resistance for extension target down to 05. All right. Some market stats for you, because everyone loves a stat. The 0 gamma level for the ES today. Oh, what is on my eye? Oh, nothing. Just a lack of sleep is on my eye. I'm gonna take a look at all the comments in 1 second. The 0 gamma level here on the ES is 69.06, which is why I really like this pullback target down to 05. It brings you kind of to the what I would say to be this week's like middle ground. You could see a lot of price action here, and this week's point of control, if you will. All right, that was the flip zone. You know how we have flip zones for the days? This is the flip zone of the week. I was going to make this flip zone to 69.05, but I don't think being short from 25 to 05 is smart just because you have this flip zone there. Call wall, we have at 70.33. It's way up there. Put wall at 68.32, down close to the lows. Volatility triggers for the ES are 68.96. You're going to start to open up some brisk downside. Below that, 05, we could expand all the way down to the prior support. If we hold the 05, 06 and we don't get below 68.96, it's kind of sideways bound. But yeah, those are your volatility triggers. Then 69.58 to the upside is also a volatility trigger. Believe it or not, we can have volatility on the upside. All right, especially pertaining to gamma, where you need to start hedging positions and your dealer exposure starts to change very quickly. Volume on the ES, like I said, overnight, it's not 148, it's 177, barely changed. I put 148 an hour ago. All right, on the SPX, 1 day implied move is 0.67%. All right, and 5 days, 1.48. Volatility trigger on the SPX is 69.25. All right, gamma exposure is surprisingly negative and stays negative. So let's see what the day brings. Let me take a look at the comments. Good morning, Prashant OTM. I said that. Next Fed will be the CEO of BlackRock. Probably OTM. And Jerome Powell will go on to be the CEO of BlackRock. Like the government or somebody from Goldman, probably, they do call them government Sachs, right? Instead of Goldman Sachs. Yeah, I don't hate the Leafs. You can't hate them. It's hard to hate. Well, actually, it's not hard to hate the Leafs. I tried to defend it, but I thought about it. So good for you, Prashant. Good afternoon, Dinesh, my brother. Hope you're well. Mazen, good morning. Onions, Prashant. Silver's doing good, Mazen. Marco, no trades for me. We'll just observe till 8 a.m. Marco, you tend to stick to that pattern a lot, right? No trading Friday, unless you have good reason. Just curious how it's worked out for you. You don't have to answer here. You could answer in the trading room. Let me know if you found a benefit to it. I've considered it a long time. Just never been brave enough to pull it because I want to be there for the people as support. But if I'm there in front of the computer, in front of the chart, I'm inevitably going to do a trade, right? There's no point of showing up if you're not going to play. This chart here, part-time Bruce Wayne. Oh my God, I'm shaking off this cough slowly, but Bruce, you got me. Part-time Bruce Wayne is probably the best handle I've seen in a while. This chart is 24 tick, sir. 24 tick chart on the right and 16 tick chart on the left, and their reversal bar is correct. And I love them so much. Just like I love you. That's it for today. Love you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. I'm going to head on over in the trading room now. Let's reconvene on Monday. We're going to continue to do morning market updates. Let's see what we got today. Quick recap. Bias is bullish. 25 is the flip zone. We have one last shot for this bull side to hold before we sell off, and we're right at that last shot now. Let's see how we open. Let's see how the order flow comes in. Let's see how the MBO book looks. Let's look at more information before we start making decisions. But this is your analysis for the day. If you enjoyed it, please let me know by hitting the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. We do these every single day, and they're a lot of value, hopefully, that you find. All right, love you guys. Have a great day to you and your beautiful families. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the time. Get some rest because we have another big week coming. Sleep more than 2 hours maybe %. That helps. And I take my own advice too. And then we'll see you on Monday. Thank you, OTM. Appreciate you. Dinesh, thank you. Everyone else as well, thank you so much. And enjoy your day and weekend. Signing off. Goodbye.